bienvenue pour cette séance de l'après-midi. Bienvenue au nom de l'ID&KYC Forum et nous commençons.
So, welcome to the KYC Forum, and we have the Trust and Safety Forum debate today, and we're going to talk about the responsibility of platforms on the Internet. We're going to talk about the fight against illicit content. We're going to talk about the protection of minors. We're going to talk about the verification of age and also attributes. And it's over to Jean-Sébastien who's going to moderate this roundtable.
For this panel. I'm Jean-Sébastien Mariez, a Paris-based lawyer with a kind of strong practice in platform regulations. But today, I'm just the moderator, so I'm going to just very quickly introduce the panelists we have today to talk about the strengthening of the accountability when it comes to tackling online illegal and harmful content. And then I'll let the floor to each of them for a first round of questions. On my right side, we have Arda Gerkens. Arda, you've been appointed in September 2023 as a chairwoman of the newly established Online Terrorist and Child Pornographic Material Authority, which is an authority in Netherlands. The role of which, well, you're gonna tell us about the role of this authority, but basically, the purpose of which is to fight against this specific type of content. On my left, I have a colleague, a fellow lawyer, Blanche Ballon. She is a counsel at Stephenson Hartwood Law Firm. You have a practice in compliance program, and particularly in the field of anti-corruption, anti-money laundering, and you also assisting clients with internal investigations. I have Antonin Moll. Antonin, you're a co-founder of tech companies called Opal.io, and basically providing identification services, right? You're going to tell us about your activity and the technology you provide. And on the right side, we have Florian Chevop-Verdier, Policy Public Manager at Yoti, which is another identification, age verification service provider. As Antonin, actually, you took part to the elaboration at the AFNOR, which is let's say the French branch of the ISO, of a set of guidance aiming at the protection of minors online. So to begin, I'll just stress one or two elements relating to the regulatory background that we have to cope with today, and which hopefully may give rise to more accountability among the platforms. Well, as I guess all of you know already, we have a very important and a landmark regulation at EU level, which is the Digital Service Act, which came into application pretty recently for all the platforms, because it came into application in February, mid-February. But we have also other pieces of regulation at national level, and on one side everything, but I think we can cite the Online Safety Act in the UK, which is kind of local DSA with some specifics. And in France, we are actually coming to the end of a process aiming at adopting a new piece of regulation, again, which is dedicated to online content, and which more or less part of it actually deals with the transposition of a few provisions of the DSA, and other provisions are directly related to age verification, actually, an issue that we'll be discussing today. Just to start the conversation with the first set of questions, and you could interact together, obviously. Arda, can you start maybe as the chairwoman of an authority working on this type of specific content? Can you tell us about the role of this authority? Maybe tell us a word about the difference between your authority and the digital service coordinator, the purpose of which is to monitor specifically, but more broadly, the DSA implementation. And also, what would be interesting is to hear you about the respective role between the platforms, the authorities, for us to understand, to better understand who is accountable for what, according to you, when it comes to fighting harmful and illegal content.
Yes, thank you very much. So my organization is the one who is executing the TCO, the Terrorist Content Online Act, European legislation, and we are the only regulatory body in Europe to do so. So we made a choice to do so in my country because we believe that sending out, taking down orders on terroristic content can be very much infringing, or is in fact infringing, freedom of speech. So it shouldn't be able to politically influence that. And a regulatory body is independent from the politicians. Second, as you might know, the Netherlands has a lot of CSAM hosted in its country. And we found that although the majority of companies are very proactive taking that material down, there's a small part who doesn't do so, and it's proven to be difficult with criminal law to hunt them down. So we think that legislative law, administrative law would be much better for that, and we will get the national legislation hopefully for the end of summer. Please keep your fingers crossed with me. So basically what we're doing is telling which content is illicit and what not and should be taken down. And for the TCO, meaning that you have to remove it within an hour. So that's no questions asked, remove it, later we'll debate on it. Now, if you look at the DSA, I must say I'm very happy with the DSA. I think it brings a lot of strength to the end users, a lot of transparency, and that was really needed. And I always explain it in this way. The DSA is like the rules of the game. So the legislation tells you what the rules of the game should be and how the game should be played. But what we don't have in the DSA, and I think that's what's lacking, and we're going to need it, maybe even on more subjects than just terrorist content or child sex abuse material in future, is the referee, the one who's saying, this is foul play, I'm going to give you a red card or a yellow one, maybe for the first instance. Whilst the DSA coordinator is more like the VAR, we say in the Dutch, you know, the video referee, who is looking at the end of all the games saying, yeah, no, in total, I think you didn't do a good job. So you didn't play against for the rules. Now, you've asked me, do you think, you know, who should be, will there be more accountability? I think definitely there will be more accountability under the DSA because there's more reporting going on. If the reports are for the real representing what's happening, we don't know. We have to see how that will work out. But I do think it's problematic that Big Tech is defining what kind of material should be taken down because we do not define for them what's illegal or not. And I think many people think, well, for instance, for child sex abuse material, that's quite clear, isn't it? Well, it's not. I've seen in the past hosting parties debating whether somebody on that image is 18 years or younger. And also you could argue if material is really illegal in this country and it's another country, whether it should be taken down or not. So I think that's something what we should have in our own hands and should decide together, not only with Big Tech, but with the whole society. And I mean also privacy rights organizations, journalists, everybody who has a very big interest online to define what needs to be taken down and not, and should not be in the hand of big tech. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for introducing the discussion. So if I understand correctly, your organization, your authority is very much focusing on notification for the content to be taken down once requested by your authority.
That's not a request, it's an order.
Yeah, it's an order.
There's no way to say we can't. So no, because it's very. I think it's very important to say this, because sometimes people have the suggestion, okay, you request, then I look at the material, then I decide whether I will take it down. You don't decide. We have decided for you.
Yeah, because you have this quality of being an administrative body, actually, so you can do that, as could do it a judicial authority, but it's quicker, I guess, through this kind of administrative process. So that's one part of the solution, taking down content, and we know that that can be done following an order, but also on a prospective and proactive manner from the platform. Okay, and there's also another big important issue and kind of measure that the platform can implement, and I will turn to Antonin and also to Florian to share their views on this. These kind of measures are dealing with the age verification, so that it specifically relates to the minors, to the minor users, but so that the minors do not access content that they're not supposed to access. We can cite, we can mention pornographic content, for example, but there's other harmful content also. So as you are both representing companies providing technology solution, age verification solution, I'm sure you'll have interesting insight on this.
Yes, thank you, Jean-Sébastien. First of all, I'm a father of 5 kids, including 2 teenagers, so I'm very, very aware of the issues we are talking about. And I was very, maybe you remember, ARCOM last year published a study about the usage of pornography among the children in France. And
the ARCOM is the French Digital Service Coordinator. That's the former authority supervising the audiovisual and the media.
Thanks. Yes, and so the results showed that about 2.4 million children access to pornography every month. And in average, we've got 1 out of 2 boys 12 years old, which is accessing every month to such content. So it's a very big issue. The first exposure to porn in average is about 10 years in France, and it used to be 14 5 years ago. So we have a problem, a very big problem, and this problem is increasing with the usage of different smartphones, etc., earlier and earlier. And of course, the first responsibility is on the parents' side. We need to provide education, and it was very much discussed yesterday already. Of course, we can provide protection with different parental control tools, but some of you, like me, that have teenagers, they probably know that it's not providing the adequate level of protection. And of course, we also need to replace those stupid buttons, I'm over 18, which are giving access to pornographic content or other non-appropriate types of content. Of course, I'm focusing more on pornography, but it's relevant also for many other types of content. And of course, for that, we need law enforcement. And your role, ADA, and the role of ARCOM, that should be more and more involved with the SREN law, is absolutely mandatory to push those platforms to change the way they accept the users and check if those ones are adults or not. Maybe I can share a little bit about the SREN law, which is which was discussed yesterday in a commission, and we are still expecting the results, but it was validated, so it was conclusive. We don't have yet the full text, but it might be a good news for those involved in minors protection, let's hope. This law is changing the way we will enforce age verification services, in particular when focusing on this issue. And it's changing the procedure from a juridical one to an administrative one, which will be much quicker and much more efficient to enforce the age verification. And it's also including measures to provide protection of privacy, because, of course, we need to protect the children, but we need also to protect our privacy, and the CNIL is pushing for a double-blinded principle. We call it double anonymat, which avoids the possible collection of both identity and browsing history. So for that, we need law enforcement, but we also need new technological solutions. And this is why I founded Opal. We are providing age verification services, but we act as a trusted third party, which brings additional opportunities to this issue. We need child protection, privacy, simple UX, and costs that is compatible with the business models of those platforms. And we provide simplicity and choice with a full web experience and different sources of age verification. We stand as a third party between the platforms and the different sources of age verification, like digital identities, like companies like Yoti, which Florian is representing, and others also. We provide privacy by building a wall between the platform and the company knowing your identity.
So you're acting as a third party?
Yes,
yeah?
Exactly.
Trusted third party.
And we also bring persistence so that the user can reuse the proof of age after a first verification, and it's a key enabler to reduce the cost to access those platforms. And of course, for a free tube like Pornhub, which is earning about 1 cent per session, we need to come with a solution that is a fraction of this to be compatible with their business model. And if we provide this, we can help them implementing this, and this is our goal.
Okay, thanks. As Antonin mentioned it, in taking the French example, there has been a lot of discussion in France about what seems to be a conflicting interest so far, but the technology may solve this, between the need to introduce age verification on one side, and on the other side the need to protect privacy and protect the personal data of the minors. On your side, sorry, do you also can you comment and tell us about how these complementary technologies are part of the solution?
Yeah, hi everyone. So to give a bit of context, the kind of defining difference between Opal and ourselves is we provide the age verification technology. So we give people with the option to verify their age using their credit card or an identity document, your passport, whatever, or technologies like age estimation, which is looks at the structure of your face, kind of estimates an age off the basis of how your face looks, and the AI that has been analysing thousands of faces and kind of understanding how a normal face looks. I wanted to go back on what's been said. I mean, you know the stats, right? Kids basically are watching porn younger and younger. but what's important is the effects it has on them. Right, so we're seeing societal shifts where children, it's not Yoti saying it's every study ever, where we see children moving to preoccupying sexual behaviours, or you can see society getting more sexist and misogynist because people translate representations in pornography into their real lives. So there's a real urgency, and we often hear sort of like, oh, COVID, suddenly we all went online. Actually, I think we really used to be before anyway. Social media was everywhere. So, but in the lockdown, which has probably sort of triggered some of our worst behaviours, we've kind of had a bigger urgency to act. Obviously, France is trying its thing with double anonymity. Good. Cocorico, France likes to sort of try new ideas and put them out there. Yoti being a global company, we also kind of witness. The first problem, I think, is verifying the age. Is what age? Right? What is it? Is it 15? Is it 16? Actually, if I do show a hand, we probably will have a variety of opinions. The Floridians are saying one thing, Californians another. The Brits, we're saying different, and the Australians, and they're also saying a different thing. So what we're seeing, first of all, is a real disparity between not just the need to verify the age, but at what age and using what between cultures. And cultures really influence whether people think. There are cultures where people will actually be fine with parents letting watch their underage children porn, and that's how a culture evolves. On the need to have law enforcement, etc. So we've talked about regulation. I'm super happy. There's a commission mixte paritaire, which is, I'm sure they're having fun and coming up with a law soon. But that regulation doesn't start when they vote it through, right? I mean, we all know that. The regulators then need to do their work. They need to put codes of practice. I'm ex-Ofcom, so I know what I'm talking about. We need to consult people. You need to make sure the public actually buys into what you're proposing, because guess what? If you don't consult, then people will turn against you to take away your powers. So in the case of France, we do have a question of, Arcom will need to publish. Will there be a public consultation? Will there be a vote in Parliament? And then when does Arcom start sort of really enforcing it? And we've heard in the Trust and Safety Conference on the other side of the building that fines aren't always the answer. Well, actually, strong examples of action, of regulatory action and enforcement sometimes actually are the answer. You need to do your GDPR fine or your ICO fine for everyone to kind of follow suit. So as an age verification company, I think the question about privacy, so we don't say how people should do it. We're not here to tell you how to do it. We think it should be you, citizens, talking to your elected representatives, who then talk to your regulators and then tell them how to do things. We provide the option, and people should have the option. We always say have a variety of options. Don't just do document-based verification, because some people don't have passports. Some people, I live in the United Kingdom, 40% of people there don't have identity documents. So if you do something, actually, it'll increase disparities and discrimination, and it'll widen the gap between those who can and those who cannot. So have privacy-preserving measures like age estimation. Looks at the structure of your face, doesn't need a name and address. Don't need to know if you're Scorpio or Pisces. I just need to know if you're above or under a certain age, or within a threshold, like INCYBER are doing. And in the so that's the Laboratory for Protection of Children. It's an initiative that came from the Christchurch Call to Action. So in France, the Laboratoire de la Protection de l'Enfance, and so that's that thing. It's been going on for a year. We're in it now as a full member with the first age verification company. And last year we presented results of Meta using our age estimation on Instagram for people who were trying to suddenly change their age from under 18 to over, right? So kind of suspicious. And we found out that it stopped almost 90% of people from doing that. And so what we often say is, we see a bunch of countries doing their thing. So the Netherlands have fed back to the Irish regulators saying self-declaration doesn't work. The Irish are kind of asking themselves. The people in Spain are doing something. People in France are doing one thing. We can't wait to see unity and uniformity in Europe. But whilst we speak, we have age estimation, age verification being used coherently, and it works, and it's being used today and at scale. So sometimes maybe it's a case of not going much further than the tip of our noses to find the solutions that already exist.
Well, thanks, Florian. It's now Blanche, we just heard about the possibilities opened by the technologies. We heard that the legislators they are enacting new bill, but Florian stressed that after this, the guidelines are still needed, and that can take time. So, Blanche, can you tell us about actually, because of course, platforms, they can wait for this kind of specific measures, meaning the age verification, to become mandatory before implementing them, but also they can be more proactive, implement them in a voluntary manner. But maybe, Blanche, what you could tell us about, and where I guess there's a connection. They can also, as a result of the implementation of the DSA, as a result of the audits they are supposed to do with respect to the systemic risk, at least for the very large online platforms, they can conclude that such technology are one of the measures to be implemented. So can you maybe come back on how this works, this DSI and the mechanic of compliance behind this, and how much it could lead platforms to implement this kind of measures among others?
Yes, thank you. Just maybe one word for those who are not really familiar with the DSA, the Digital Service Act. First of all, the EU has decided, so there was a choice either to adopt a regulation or a directive. So I don't know if you're once again familiar with the distinction between the two. The EU regulation is directly applicable within the member states with no need to transpose them into each state, which of course it's a choice very, very interesting from a political point of view, because they don't have to wait for the member states to transpose it, and you have like no real differences between the different states. So, and the directive is different because, once again, the directive has to be transposed. So they chose to use the regulation. So, and as Jean-Sébastien said earlier, the regulation is now mandatory. It came into force on 17th of February this year, I think. So this is the first point I wanted to raise. Another one, which I think is very important, and maybe Antonin will have something to say about it. The DSA has what we call an extraterritorial reach, which means that regardless of where the companies are registered, they can be registered in an EU member state or outside the EU, as long as they target EU people, EU customers, they have to comply with the EU laws. And I think it's something very, very important to note. And it's exactly the same logic as the GDPR. Regarding both the tool that is used, which is a regulation, and the extraterritorial reach. And really the purpose of this legislation, which is quite innovative throughout the world, is to protect EU citizens. And the regulations speak about a safe, predictable, and trusted online environment. And I think it's really something that should be kept in mind. To go back to your question, Jean-Sébastien, and from a compliance point of view, because it's my area of expertise, what is very, very interesting to see with this new legislation is the obligations imposed, especially on a very large platform, who have actually a kind of responsibility towards customers, but also towards civil society more generally. And there is this notion of systemic risk, which was used actually, I don't know if you remember, but after the 2008 economic crisis, we used this term of systemic risk for banks' default, sovereign defaults. And the idea was that if there's something going wrong with this or another bank, it could like put the system completely down. And this idea of systemic risk appears into the DSA legislation in order to impose compliance obligations on very large platforms. What does it mean? Just in a few words, compliance means that they have to assess have to conduct like a risk assessment, so they have to assess the different risks they can be exposed to, or that the use of their service can expose the EU members to. And I have noted several different types of systematic risk, but there is the dissemination of illegal content through their services, so that's going back to what we talked earlier, but also, and it's very interesting, any actual or foreseeable negative effects for the exercise of fundamental rights. And within fundamental rights, there is human dignity, respect for private and family life, etc. And there are also different types of risk, like negative effects on civic discourse and electoral process, public security, etc. And I think one of the things we can note here, and is very important, and it's complementary with, of course, what public authorities do, but the EU legislator has taken into account the very large impact those platforms have on the behavior, on how people can be influenced in their way of thinking, in their way of behaving, and they have to take into account this systemic risk, and to put in place remedial action on mitigating measures in order to mitigate these risks. And then there are also many other obligations regarding like governance, to put in place compliance people in order to be able to really implement a compliance program and to once again to handle and to take into account this very important role they have in society in general.
Well, thanks. As a result, we can see that, these kind of regulation probably increase the need for remediation measures, corrective measures, among which the kind of service that you're providing on both sides of the table. But I'm just curious to know whether because just for the background, the DSA makes a distinction between the very large online platform, okay, which are subject to this kind of audit, to this kind of audit, and all the others. And I'm just curious to understand from you, service providers, whether, because DSA came into effect for all the non-VLOP 2 months ago, a month and a half ago, do you feel like do you see an impact on with respect to your business, basically, and how much platforms are aware of the fact that first they need to take into consideration this new regulation, and second, that your solution can be part of the remediation, of the corrective measures they are supposed to implement, or not already? Maybe you don't see already this impact. I'm just asking.
Maybe I can start, Florian, and you will follow. If we look at free porn again, what we see yet is that the main platforms, including those considered as VSOP by DSA, like Pornhub, they are still resisting to any implementation of proper age verification, and they just decided a week ago to block Texas. So all the traffic from Texas, 35 million people, is blocked. Pornhub is not accessible from there without a VPN. So they are still sticking to this position to say that there is no proper solution to protect the children and our privacy. And of course, this is not true.
Antonin, why is that? They're questioning the fact that, for example, the solution are providing a level of anonymity that is efficient, or are they against any kind of solution?
It's a good question. What they say is they want to protect our rights as citizens. But of course, the reasons behind, I think there are two. The first one is economical. So if they can't find a way to verify the age which is compatible with their business model, they will resist as much as they can. The second one is an issue of synchronization, because if only one platform or two platforms are implementing those measures, what they see, they've tested it, they see 95% of their traffic which is going to other platforms, because those people are not loyal at all. So it's like building a dam, which is only on a fraction of the river. The flow goes the other way.
Okay. Florian and then Arda, you wanted to say a word? Yeah.
Well, I suppose on the question of sizes, and there's a global movement. So this week, Ofcom published, so for the United Kingdom, also published an approach that has a sort of size approach. So I think it's something like if you have 31 or 35 million users in the UK, you're considered to be one of the big ones, which in Europe would be one of LOPs. So yeah, the size approach has definitely been taken up across the world. How many platforms are aware that they now need to do? I think my answer is, with a touch of British humour, is unless you've been living under a rock, you know that these requirements have been coming, right? I mean, just watch TV or read a newspaper. We're all talking about the harms. There are studies absolutely everywhere that will tell you what's happening, what the consequences are, and legislation. I mean, we were once in it, so we know, but in Europe doesn't happen overnight. So, you know, there's been debate and consultations and all sorts of things. So, platforms, no. I think I'll go back to what Antonin said, which is that it's the question of enforcement, because great, I mean, for those of you non-French people in the room, it's been something that's been going on, almost like I think as long as a Netflix series by now, is a trial against a number of adult content providers in France. And while the delay, the date has just been postponed and postponed and postponed. And I think if you're a platform, you're like, well, there's not much happening, there's no real enforcement, so do I really need, as Antonin said, do I need to do something that will push away traffic from my website onto the others? Because really, if you add friction to access something that people want to access, they'll just go to the one where there isn't friction. So I think one of the other problems is in the United States, well done Europe for acting collegiately. In the US, yes, they are country-sized states, but they're all acting on their own, setting different sets of rules. So I think maybe there's something to be said about, you know, whether legislation can still be passed at a federal level and will actually compel providers to act there. Has a provider got more power against each individual state? And, you know, coming from the UK, I'm not going to lecture about whether countries should stick together or not, but I think there's something to be said there. I think it literally goes back to supervision. It's been said, if you don't have credible regulators in front of you, Ofcom has recruited over 400 people. It's insane. It's the best people of the industry. And I think platforms there are kind of thinking, yeah, they've upped their game, so we're going to do things. But again, on the question, how many platforms have known? They've known. Some of them have been doing it voluntarily. Look at INCYBER, for instance, verifying all of their users.
That's interesting. Yeah.
But then again, contrary to that, I think the discussion has been going on platforms. I mean, think of like social media platforms, and I do think that a lot of websites, smaller websites, services, really don't think that this applies to them, or they don't want to, because that's what I see with the adult porn. They're trying to dive ever since. In my former position, I started a lawsuit against X-Hamster for the infringing of the GDPR because they're uploading material without explicit consent. And they've, ever since then, the ruling, of course, was in our favor. Ever since then, they were trying to avoid that ruling in ways like they did in Texas. So it's also about, do they feel like it's the legislation applicable to them? The discussion is most of the time about the Facebooks and the Instagrams and not about Pornhub, which it should be as well. And I'm not even talking about all the file sharing hosters and the image hosters, which there's a lot of rubbish on there too. So and that's one thing. The other thing I truly fear, and I truly think that will happen, is the VLOPs. They are very much under the scrutiny of the European Commission, who is taking a fierce stand against them. And, but there's many smaller companies in the different nations which have no clue, and they will now get the more, problematic content, and that's what we're already seeing at our organization. We see platforms.
They may shift from these big ones,
yes,
very much
to other ones,
to the others. Yeah.
To ones we've never heard about before. We now see pop up with that kind of content, So there's a lot of work to be done for, I think, both the coordinating authorities and my organization.
Antonin, you wanted to add a word?
Yes. First, of course, the size of Europe matters a lot, and the most impactful change will be obtained if we can move forward with the DSA in implementing those age verifications in the VLS in very large platform first. But it won't be enough, and we need to push this forward. And SREN law in France is covering what I can call a shadow of the DSA, yet it's focusing on all the porn content, and by accelerating the procedure to enforce the law and block the traffic of the sites that don't comply, they bring this synchronization and this ability to help those platforms put in place these age verification measures together in a short period of time, and avoiding these bouncing effects that they have when they do it solely. So I think SREN is helping by showing the way. Hopefully, if it's applicable to all the platforms that have traffic in France, of course, it should be including the X-Video from Czech Republic or X-Hamsters you mentioned from Cyprus.
Yeah, because maybe, and as our time is coming to an end, please prepare your question if you have some. I would just complement what you just said, because you just need to know to maybe better understand the limits of the current state of law. In the DSA, when it comes to the non-VLOPs, if I'm not mistaken, there's not much about age verification. There's not much about minors protection, actually. It's a horizontal instrument, horizontal regulation, so it deals with all types of content. And when it deals to minors, there's only a restriction related to profiling minors in order to address them with targeted advertising, and that's why I guess Antonin see, and if I understand correctly, you too see the French development as a positive development. Can I say that? Yeah or no? I don't know. But what is clear is that I'm not aware at the EU level of a specific vertical initiative that would lead to the same direction.
Maybe just one word. In the DSA, in the part of the mitigation of systemic risks we talked about earlier, there is a section on protection of the rights of the child, including age verification. So yeah. Yes, for the very large platform, and it's not like an obligation. It's not mandatory as such, but it is part of the mitigating measures that could be taken if there is a systemic risk of this nature that is identified by those same very large platform.
Thanks. Any question before we end this great panel? Yeah, please.
Yes, thank you to all for this very interesting debate. I want to ask, there are other measures in SREN law in France, for instance, checking a kind of a majority to access social networks or some web content outside pornography. Also, sometimes checking the consent of the parents, or checking other attributes. My question is this something that you find also in other countries of Europe, or maybe in the UK in the online safety bill? And also, is this something that is a nice to have, but there's no really political will to do that? Or is it something that you feel is going to happen really?
Who wants to answer this? Yeah?
Well, no, we don't in the Netherlands, and I can only say that's because of the same debate going on here in France. It's the difficulty between privacy and security, actually, here. Yeah.
Thank you. Parental consent is something that everyone wants to do, but no one has said how. So we do it in this country on UBO, where we kind of check the age of the person that is asking for their parents' consent, and we check the age of the parent, and if the parent happens to be 24, someone who's 13, and but really we haven't got it. So we've submitted a mechanism to be approved by the United States National Institute for Science and Technology. They've consulted widely. There's been a lot of comments, and they're due to give an opinion. So watch the space. But yeah, nice, important one to have, not a nice one to have, I would say.
We done? Yeah, Antonin, last word?
Yeah, in France we've got a bill which was discussed like 9 months ago, I think, Marc-Angeli, introducing the digital majority from at 15 and requiring parental consent collection before that. But we've got no news from this bill so far, so it might be staying somewhere. But of course, I think it's the logical development after porn exposure. Of course, the large social media, including TikTok, for example, they include much risk for our children, and the simple declaration of my date of birth, it's not enough, of course, to protect them. So it should be coming soon, I hope.
Yeah, okay, and sure, and maybe to conclude on this, and it will also be part of the answer. I guess that because of this digital majority bill, we can see the difficulty to legislate at the local level, at the member state level. Because the reason why this bill that will never come into force is because it's not compliant with the EU law, which is another constraint added to the protection of personal data that has to be taken into account when legislating, regulating on age verification. So. And to conclude this panel, maybe that's the way forward. Maybe the better way to address this kind of mandates would be rather at the EU level, even if it can be weird to say that, as we only already implementing the DSA, but as we discussed also. There's not much about the minors in the DSI, but that would at least ensure an harmonized approach and avoid the difficulty that are arising maybe in other countries, but that's pretty obvious in France, resulting from the enactment or the vote, the elaboration of legislation that will never be implemented because they're not complying with the EU law. Well, thanks for this great discussion. Thanks to you all. Thanks the audience. We're all there. If you have any question, I'm sure all the panelists will be pleased to discuss with you after we're finished. Thank you. Bye-bye.